A win is a win is a win, right? The Chiefs moved to 1-2 on the season, get a win against the Giants today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. Thank you all for catching us on this first win of the season with the Chiefs. Cannot wait to talk about an actual win. That's going to be a lot of fun. It wasn't pretty, but they got one done. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. So much to talk about. Kansas City gets their first win of the season against the New York Giants. Finally get off the 0-2 start. And we have a lot that we're going to be discussing because questions abound whether or not this offense can get things done. But the defense showed up tonight. Another game going forward. We're going to talk about standouts and game balls later in the show. Big steps forward for, I guess, the defense continues to show, and maybe the offense a little bit too. But the Chiefs stopped the slide, and that is the story of the day. You know my partner, Ryan, over here on, well, over the – I still can't do it. Over there, not exactly sure why it says board, but he is on location somewhere. But a lot to talk about this game. I will say the one thing that stands out to me, Kansas City gets the job done, and Tyquan Thornton had some huge catches getting the offense going at different times. But there still looks like there's some disconnect on offense, and there's still some questions that we need to be figuring out as to how that's going to go going forward.
There is, but I will say it this way. I felt it was a concerted effort to do the things that they needed to do that were abnormal, that we haven't seen this season. Andy Reid changed some of his stripes. They put out some new things that they needed to do. They went to quick game, and they understood that they were going to face a pass rush that was going to get the better of them. So they found a way to get around it. It wasn't the plan from the get-go. They wanted to try to feel it out, right? They wanted to see if they could still run their normal game, but no. So they adapted, and they had that B game plan, which I've been begging for weeks and weeks, and they were able to implement it. And so it didn't become a juggernaut offense, but they got enough done to put points up. It was very slim pickings in the first half. They figured things out. They came out, they adjusted, and I think for the first time this season, we've seen second half adjustments that actually worked, and that was the order of the day.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that really stood out to me is you saw Brashard Smith get involved in the offense, and it wasn't just that he was getting the ball on offense. He was actually out there for several plays with Pacheco on the field at the same time, which is a different look that we haven't really seen so far this season. And sometimes they had him broke out as a wide receiver. Sometimes they mushed him into the backfield. That's really what you want to see. You want to see this offense kind of change things up and try to get things done in a different way. And that's exactly what Andy Reid did at times tonight. I did like that part of it. I will say the thing that really stuck out to me, though, Patrick Mahomes is finally starting to get some kind of chemistry and some kind of rhythm with Tyquan Thornton. And he showed trust in the wide receiver because I'm not going to say he didn't overthrow him a little bit on the ball that Tyquan Thornton dropped. It was maybe just a slide overthrow. Obviously, you have to catch that. That's not an excuse for a drop. But he came back to him on the third down and gave him a chance to do it. And Tyquan Thornton came up with a huge catch to put them down at the 1 yard line.
And that was just the ones that were atypical. They're going downfield. They ran slant earlier that paid off and moved the chains, and he did his job in a way that he was able to do. I think the length that Tyquan Thornton brings to the field is something that allows them to run that short, quick game, specifically slant-oriented, whether they're doubles or singles or they're crossing or not. They can run it with him, and he can make that pay off for them. This was a night that Travis Kelce was not the focus. He was not on enough. I know they tried to force the ball. That it looked like he and Patrick were a little bit out of sync yet again, but they were able to then shift and adapt. And for Tyquan Thornton to be the guy that kind of pulls it back together, I will say he was not alone. I think Juju Smith-Schuster and his presence and his ability to come back to the ball and understand where to be was key in starting the whole thing so that Tyquan had an opportunity to contribute.
Yeah, and that's something that Juju has continuously done for this Chiefs organization and when he's been here, and I've loved seeing that from him. The other thing that stood out to me We saw a snap from Nico Remigio where he ran the ball. I like that as a different thing that they haven't done. And obviously, I thought that maybe you could have done that with Brashard Smith because obviously he has the speed that you think that he can be a returner. So getting him out in space would make a lot of sense. But they came back and kind of got Smith involved in other ways. So they showed different things in their offense that they haven't been showing and put things on film. And they're expanding what they can do. But the thing that really stood out to me is Jalen Royals dressed for this game. I don't think he played a snap. And that may be the case that he's just not ready yet. And they had him active just in case. And that's possible. But that also means that there's going to be another evolution of this offense when he comes back. And I would expect that he's going to be able to come back and play against the Baltimore Ravens next week.
Yeah, I wasn't terribly surprised because he and Xavier Worthy were limited in practice all week. So it wasn't a full go. It wasn't like a full indoctrination, like you were going to be here, here, and here. So I think just kind of getting him rolling again. He was a break glass guy, right? If Tyquan hadn't gotten going, if Remigio hadn't contributed, which, by the way, put Remigio in more, get more of those plays. Please. It doesn't have to be a jet sweep, but get him the ball. The quick routes are his thing. That's something that can pay off. But if that hadn't worked, I think they could have gone to Royals in a pinch if they felt that they needed to get some kind of lift just to physically. I think the Giants were out physical them at least for a quarter, and then they started to come on. So that was a possibility, I thought, in my mind.
Well, and you look at this game and you look how it played out. Kansas City started slow. They had special teams problems throughout the game at different times. They made some stupid penalties at different times, but they were still able to shut a good Giants offense down. Yes, Russell Wilson didn't look great, but part of the reason he didn't look great is because Kansas City took him out of their game plan, didn't allow him to throw the ball deep, and when he did throw the ball deep, he turned it over, which is something this defense hasn't been doing lately, getting turnovers.
We're not even going to start about where it needed to get, but the fact that you got multiple turnovers in a ball game was a huge relief. The fact that the offense got going was a huge relief. It all had to come together. Now, was it full Chiefsness that we expect? No, but it was a step forward, and it was not the most aggressive or capable offensive team. But yet, when they threw the wrinkle at you, you didn't bend. You didn't let Jackson Dart come in and have huge plays. You let one guy get the better of you on offense, and I think we'll talk about that coming up. That's something that they have to take care of, but they got a lot of good work done tonight.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's encouraging is when you look at this, you got other players involved. You still didn't get Big Bob Tunyon involved. Don't understand that one. But you got Noah Gray involved on the offense, which gives you another thing that you can kind of evolve going into next week. If you get Jalen Royals back, if maybe you get Xavier Worthy back for the Baltimore game, you feel like this offense is going in the right direction. It wasn't pretty, but it was enough to get the job done. When we get back, we're going to talk about the big steps forward that this offense took in this game. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and easiest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 players, projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked in for the season. It's quick, it's easy, and honestly, my favorite way to follow along with football. Patrick Mahomes had 0.5 passing yards. Obviously, that was a great one tonight. Got that, cleared it, not a problem. Those are the types of things you can look for on Prize Picks, easy ways to win. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Big steps forward, and I did see something that I want to address really quick. Brian Cook did come back in the game, so just to throw that out, I think he'll be fine. Obviously, we'll see if something comes up this week, but he did come back in the game, so I do want to throw that out. But I thought he played a good game on the back end. But the other thing that really stood out to me is you saw Steve Spagnuolo really mix up this defense and really get Russell Wilson confused. And to me, that's a big step forward because while this defense looked good against Jalen Hurts, they really struggled week one. Putting something together 2 weeks in a row says that this defense is going in the right direction, I think. And then the other part of that is look at how they've done in the past. Generally speaking, they don't round out until game 5, 6, 7 on defense. It looks like they're starting to put it together already. That's encouraging.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like the small steps that you're taking are getting there. They lined Chris Jones up too much on the outside for my liking tonight, but it got some of that pressure building. I thought Jelani put in some good reps. I thought Menahue was out of place. They lined him up over the nose a bunch, and it was driving me nuts, to tell you the truth.
Didn't get that.
It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. He did get knocked. He took, I think it was a helmet to the chest at one point. He did get back up, and I believe he came back in as well. So as far as I know, and Andy's going to do the pressers here pretty quick, we don't have any major injuries from tonight. But the big step forward for me was thank you to Jalen Watson and certainly to Christian Roland Wallace for taking the dang ball away for the first time this season. It's been coming, and it's been something that's been needed.
Was it just me, or did it look like Christian Roland Wallace was playing free safety and something the Chiefs haven't had on that pick? Like, I was just really impressed the way he tracked the ball, being able to be back there. And he doesn't have great speed, but it's enough, and he has great angles, and that's what makes him such a great player for this defense. And to watch him get that interception, you sat there and it's like, okay, that's something that I don't think some of the Chiefs safeties would have done in the past, because they don't have the ability to track the ball that well and have that speed and be able to move into it. So I really love that. And then you look at the interception by Jalen Watson. That was also another good play. A guy that has been maligned at times by, on this defense. He has struggled at times, but if he can play like that, and it wasn't just that play, he had other good plays. He almost had another pick. Probably should have had another pick a little bit late in the game. Not gonna care about that too much. But if he can play like that, you have to feel pretty good about this defense, because this defense played without Christian Fulton tonight, and they shut down Malik Neighbors. And I understand a lot of that was scheme, but it's impressive nonetheless, because go look at what they did last week to the Dallas Cowboys. The Chiefs knew what they needed to do in this game, and they got it done, which makes me feel better about how they're going to be going forward.
Yeah, I have to agree. And they were able to do that by layering on top. And the scheme certainly helped, but you have to go out and execute. That's something that we haven't seen consistently, is both sides of the ball executing. And so to have such a target, you have to try to take away Malik Neighbors. That's a tall order for any defense. Mo Williams got himself a little bit into trouble with some physicality, right? Things that we know rookies are going to go through. But for the most part, I love that. Yeah, it's a good thing to have. If you're going to have a problem, that's one that you want to have.
Right.
But taking Neighbors away really changed the complexity and the whole focus of what their offense could be. It also allowed Cam Scandaboo to be crazy, and now everybody understands why. I wanted him in Kansas City, and he was my favorite running back, if not my number one running back in this draft class. That was still American Hampton. Okay, fair enough. But that physicality he was delivering at first, I felt like the team responded to on defense, and I think that was a big step forward too.
Yeah, and you watch what Scadaboo was able to do for this Giants offense, and he got it going. But that was really the only thing that they could get going consistently this entire game. You go back and look at it, Neighbors really didn't do anything. Wan'Dale Robinson didn't really do anything. And these are guys that had huge games against Dallas the week before. And in this game, Kansas City basically shut them down. And when you start looking at what you're going to be having to deal with going forward in the next couple of weeks with this Chiefs defense, this is going to be something that they're going to need to build on going forward. But the big question and the thing that would scare you going into next week would be Scadaboo had a big game, and they're going to be having another guy that's going to be a little bit more scary than Scadaboo. But when you look at other big steps forward, we already kind of talked about this guy, but I still have to give more props to Tyquan Thornton, because he continued to play. He continued to do things that generally speaking hasn't been his forte, and he helped them get the win in a game where I was really concerned that they just weren't going to be able to have the offense to do it. And in a game where Hollywood Brown really didn't step up, other than he had one or two catches and then that big pass interference play.
Yeah. That's not totally outlandish. I'll tell you that, like, the someone has to make a play besides Patrick. When Patrick has to run across the field to take the ball away because you didn't catch it. It was technically a fumble, and you just stood around there. When he has to go save that play, that means somebody else has to step up, and we have to continue to see people step up. And it doesn't matter where it comes from; it just has to happen.
Yeah, and I will say this though, that both of those plays were on Patrick. Like, I'm not saying that Pacheco shouldn't have done better. Don't get me wrong. Like, you have to be smarter than he was in both those plays. But those plays are on Patrick. You can't throw that ball. If you're going to throw it away. You can't throw it backwards. I wouldn't have cared if he would have thrown it into the second or third row. Throw it out of bounds. You can't throw it backwards and into the field of play, because that almost cost Kansas City huge, and that would have been something that really would have possibly turned the game for the Giants, because they couldn't get anything done at that point. And they didn't even have a kicker at that point.
They were struggling, and it's a struggling thing for all kickers, evidently, because Butker missed another kick. So that it's consistent.
They had an extra point.
So we're gonna have to have some conversations about where this kicking game is coming up. But before that, we're gonna get to standouts and our game balls for the first time this season. We get to give them right after this.
This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward belongs to Tyquan Thornton. Patrick Mahomes did Patrick Mahomes things, but if he doesn't have Tyquan Thornton in this game, I don't know that Kansas City wins. He was able to make plays, multiple different plays, the touchdown catch and almost getting a second touchdown catch right at the 1 yard line. Tyquan Thornton moved the game forward, got Kansas City in a position where they could win this game, and he is the one that gets the moving the game forward from Mazda for me this week. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is the only the beginning. And just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved.
The NFL season is on us, and FanDuel is making sure that you're getting ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it's all in one place, and the app is super simple to get after. Whether I want to do something ahead of time, put together a parlay, or whatever I'm looking for, jumping in live is even an option. It makes life one-stop shopping to get into the action. So if you're ready and you are ready to play, get in there, download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. And that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet to get that 300 bonus bets. Check it out at FanDuel.com.
Stands out and game balls. This is something that I've missed. I love doing the game balls, and we haven't been able to do it for a while, and that has really stunk. But standouts, I will say there's a couple of them for me. Obviously, Leo Chenal, I thought, played well. He put his head in there. I really liked what I saw from them when they started using him as an edge rusher. They have done things that they haven't done in the past couple of weeks, and they used him as an edge rusher in this game, and I really enjoyed that because I do think that he gives them not necessarily something great, but something a little bit different, and something something offenses aren't expecting, and I do think it worked in their favor tonight. And he ended up being the final tackle of the game of Russell Wilson. Wasn't a sack, but I didn't really care. It was a fourth down.
I agree completely, and I want to give the group that I think did yeoman's work tonight to get these things done. They're not as vaunted as the Giants' defensive front, but this defensive front included 6 pressures and a sack from Chris Jones, 5 pressures and a sack from George Karlaftis, including 3 hits on the quarterback. And contacting this quarterback is more effective than most, in my opinion, because where he is in his career too. So I think that is significant as well. But then the real thing that I want to call out here is you got a little bit from Jerry Tillery. You got Ashton Gelati making a couple of hustle plays. Really only one counted as a pressure, but he was there. But it was Omar Norman Lott. They got 3 more pressures tonight on the Giants in a game that he was not really looked to be the primary pass rusher. That was a group that has been maligned in last week's and had to come together, and kudos to them for figuring it out. Even if it was against this opponent, they were able to put together a game plan that got them home to protect that lead. And I think that's really a big step forward as well.
Yeah, and I think when you flip it over to the other side and you look at the offense, and I will say this as well. I do think that Andy Reid was going for it on fourth down and then looked at it and goes, wait a second, my defense is playing pretty well. I'm not gonna throw them to the wolves like I did last week. And it cost them. I don't know that it would have cost them against the Giants because the Giants offense couldn't do anything. But Andy Reid made a call to not go for it. And I actually appreciated that because I do think that in that time it made sense. You look at this though, it's hard for me to say that Patrick Mahomes stood out, but he continued to do small things that just made you say, okay, well, that's going to be enough to get the win in this one. Obviously, it's not going to be enough to get a win in some of the other games that they played, but he also can't be the guy that's doing everything. The one thing I did like about this game, though, with Mahomes, he wasn't the leading rusher. That was new.
Ding, ding, ding. And to that point, something that stood out to me was that Andy Reid got it a little bit better figured out. 10 carries per for Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. They combined for 7.9 yards per rush on those rushes. So whether it looked or felt like it or not, they were more effective in running the ball tonight. That was a big deal. They totaled in at 79 out of the 105. So Patrick didn't have to do that much. And I think if they double down on that, and this is what 37 attempts plus 2 scrambles, so 39 pass calls versus 23 run calls. I can live with that. As someone who likes to promote balance in the play call, I'll take that, and that'll be enough, because I think that this showed how it gets their physicality going, it gets their offense going, and it gives them things to work off of. And that's what worked tonight, including a nice counter play that they have to go back to the well over and over and over again until somebody figures out how to stop it.
Well, and they need to continue doing what they were doing with Brashard Smith. And I like what you said about Nico Remigio as well. Pepper him into the offense. When you only have, if you go back and we talked about it last week, specifically after the game, you had basically 3 wide receivers running all of your routes. If you're going to have that going into next week against the Ravens, that's a problem. You need to get more variance. You need to get more people out there running routes, whether it's Brashard Smith as used as wide receiver, which he lined up several times as wide receiver, even though they motioned him back into the backfield most of the time, but he still lined up out wide. They also went to a 2 tight end set a lot with Noah Gray and Travis Kelce and used Noah Gray to do some things that I think he's shown that he can consistently do for you. So I do think that that's also positive. But then you look at it from the perspective of you have Nico Remigio, who shows you that he has the ability to do things when he has the ball in his hands in space. Use him a little bit more. I don't care. I'm not saying he has to get 10 snaps and 10 targets, but give him 2 or 3 and just use him as a change of pace, because you're getting all these guys worn out. And you would hope that Jalen Royals and Xavier Worthy are close to returning, but we don't know right now.
I got my fingers crossed. We're going to see what happens. As far as when it all comes down, who made the changes? You can give Patrick Mahomes a game ball every game, so we're just going to discount that. Anyone not named Mahomes, stand up. For me, it was the guy who got it rolling on defense to take that possession away. My game goes to CRW for stepping into a role that he hadn't been in, had to come in and make some plays, and he made maybe the best play. And as you said earlier, gave them a glimpse of what someone actually playing center field could actually do. They got to double down on that. And Dave Merritt, I'm talking to you. You got to get him more involved. Game ball for CRW.
And I love that. The other thing that I'm going to be curious about is he had to play more because you lost Brian Cooks at some point. And I know Cook came back and played and was able to finish the game, but he did give you something. I mean, we talked about how many times that they're going to run 3 safety sets with Cook and Hicks and Chamari Connor. And now you've got a 4th that you feel like you should be getting out there at different times in different packages. And they're using him more at safety than we ever thought that they were going to do, versus we thought that he was going to be a corner. Now he's basically playing safety. So how's that going to play, and what's that going to look like going forward in the next couple of weeks? I don't know that I can go anywhere else other than Tyquan Thornton for my game ball. You look at what he was able to do. He was so close to making another huge touchdown catch. Mahomes just barely missed him, and they were off a little bit on their timing. He didn't get his head around. If Mahomes puts a little bit more air under it, Tyquan Thornton may have got another touchdown on that one because he was wide open and had nobody behind him, and there's nobody that's going to be catching him in an open field as long as the ball is in front of him and he doesn't have to slow down for it. So I love seeing, and this is kind of something we talked about when we had Xavier Worthy getting all those extra snaps last year. What I love seeing is you're in a situation now where because you've lost Worthy, because you've lost Rashee Rice for the first couple of games, you're forced to put Tyquan Thornton in situations that you were not expecting him to be in. And that is going to force him to grow in this offense and get more chemistry and do more for Patrick Mahomes and do more for this offense going forward. And it is going to pay off down the line. Obviously, Kansas City moves to 1-2. Huge to get that victory. My game ball is going to Tyquan Thornton. I already said that, but just to be clear, do you have an honorable mention that you want to give since Matt's not here?
And kudos to Matt. He had some live television commitments that kept him from joining us tonight, given the hour that it is. And kudos to you guys for all being here. If I were in his place, I would probably say that you have to give something to someone who got things started that was a crutch. And I would say he would probably consider somebody like Juju Smith-Schuster, who made plays they had to have in order to keep drives going, in order to get drives going. I think Matt would be pretty reluctant to ignore something like that. So there's an honorable mention for you. We'd love to know what you guys think. Put your game balls down in the comments here on YouTube.
That is going to be it for us today. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more about this game, and we will talk to you tomorrow.